Red's Fly Shop, this is Bob. How may I help you today?
Look at that. Woo! Welcome back to the channel. It's Joe at Red's Fly Shop here. Hey, today we're going to do something we've never done before, and I'm going to teach you how to be a better dry fly fisherman from a drift boat. Western style drift boat fishing is really the heart of what we do at Red's as far as our guiding and outfitting operation. And over 20 plus years of guiding, I would say the number one thing we wish guests or fishing partners or buddies, other than being able to row better, what we wish they could do is just dry fly better from a moving drift boat. We are so blessed on the Yakima River in the canyon here. We have this wonderful habitat with water up flush to the bank, and we have a lot of trout that are living in these tough to reach places at the edges of very swift technical currents. And so our dry fly arena that we have here is one that is quite technical. We're going to walk you through a whole bunch of pointers today, some of them very basic, some of them a little bit more technical, because we want you to have the best angling and catching experience that you possibly can with the least amount of frustration. When it comes to drift boating, and I don't care whether you have your own boat, you rent a boat, you get a buddy with a boat, or you're a guided guest, the number one thing that our guides wish we saw more is a better dry fly angler. Nymphing, you know, from a moving boat with a guide is frankly, it's the easiest and shortest path to just sticking some trout and getting them in the net. The dry fly fishing we do is far more technical. When a trout decides to go to the surface, it's undergoing some risk. It knows the closer it gets to the surface, the heron, the osprey, even the angler is much more likely to be able to get it. It feels less safe. So in order for us to get a fish to come up to the surface, we need to earn its trust with, you know, a good fly, of course, but that's easy. Most flies they all taste about the same. What we really need is a very trusting presentation, one that the trout sees and just says, okay, absolutely real. I'm gonna head to the surface, I'm gonna get that. And that presentation is largely about casting, but it's also about knowledge of selecting targets and then some other techniques that we're going to employ in order to get that trout to the surface. But we want to see our guests show up. Well, we want to see all guests. I don't care whether you're with another outfit or another location. We want to see you go have good dry fly fishing. I mean, that's the heart and soul of the sport. So today, that's what we're going to focus on, dry fly fishing from a moving drift boat, Western style. Let's get started. Okay, so first off, what are we trying to do here? Our goal is to keep that dry fly in habitat, drifting naturally as much as we possibly can. And there's a whole bunch of components that go into that: casting accuracy, aiming, you know, at the correct targets, etc. But the number one thing is casting downstream. Okay, we're talking about fishing from a moving drift boat. Casting downstream, if you want to drive your guide absolutely insane, just start casting 90 degrees and then a little bit upstream. You'll see the vein in his temple just start to pop out. Casting downstream is like the foundation of what we do. And a lot of folks that are newbies or beginners or frankly just not that good at dry fly fishing, a guide or an experienced rower, they'll let you start casting 90 degrees because you're not recognizing targets fast enough, because you're not looking downstream. It's just kind of what gets you through the day. But just remember, the core fundamental with a dry fly in a moving boat is we're going to be casting downstream. Okay, we can do way more with the fly. One, I'm looking ahead, I can see my targets. Two, if I'm going to put any kind of modification like a reach cast or a little bit of English to manipulate the float, I can do it much better going downstream. But more importantly, I'm going to cast downstream, I'm looking ahead, my fly is way down below my leader, so they're not going to see my leader, my tip at my fly line. And if I can cast, in theory, I mean, this is only theory here, if I could cast straight downstream, my fly line and my leader would all be in one line. There would be no drag and no mending if my cast was linear. So that's the first fundamental to understand is, especially in the front of the boat, you're the scout, you're the tip of the spear. We need to have a very sharp downstream angle. I'm casting minimum of 45 degrees unless I'm tucking in behind a tree or something. I'm a steep downhill caster just like so. Downhill. All right, we're gonna run through a few minutes worth of just technical tips, and then I'm just gonna go crazy doing some fishing with a head cam on. So if you wanna see some fishing, stay tuned. So we've talked about the downhill angle being the cornerstone, especially for the angler in the front of the boat. We need to get out in front of the boat, and then a good rower is gonna track and follow those flies so we can get a drift running along the shore or in a seam line or along whatever habitat. Most of the habitat is gonna be linear, so we really like that downhill angle. Let's talk about just general form. And we're not gonna make this a whole casting video, but this is gonna be very specifically tailored, listen carefully, to the attributes we see in the best dry fly anglers that jump in our boats. Number one is gonna be very compact casting form, okay? If you have your feet spread apart and you're rocking the boat, we might as well just shove you out. That's not gonna work, okay? This is a delicate instrument. Fishing a very delicate 5-weight rod. We're gonna have most of our motion come from our elbow. There's gonna be a little bit of wrist involved and our shoulder. Very compact stroke. And I'm getting major line speed, no problem. I'm not rocking the boat. It's a very short casting stroke, okay? I want you to think about this a little bit like golfing. This rod is capable in the right hands of casting 120 feet. Our trout are gonna be caught at 15 to 35 feet. Very, very short cast. These are chips and putts. To use a golfing analogy, with your little wedge and you're chipping onto the green, it's a very short, quick tap. Putts are the same way. It's a short, quick tap. Very short back and short stop coming forward. So we need this very, very short casting stroke, okay? If we try to go back here or make a long stroke, we're not gonna have that surgical precision that we need. We want you hitting paper plate size spots, and it's honestly not that hard if you exercise some discipline. The shorter stroke is better, okay? Very, very short and compact. I want you to go ahead and take a pencil or a pen or your finger or wherever you're sitting right now, and I want you to have this tick-tock motion. It's gonna be about a 12 o'clock stopping point. The rod tip will flex you back to about 1, and then we're gonna propel forward to no more than about a 10 a.m. stop. And we'll talk a little bit more about the stop and drop technique here in a moment. That's more of a presentation strategy. But we want to have this really nice short casting stroke, just like that. My elbow is tucked, it doesn't leave my side. There's so many reasons for compact form. One of which is maybe I need to come over my left shoulder on one cast. Then I need to come over my right. I need the line here close to my body so I can handle it. If I'm out here like this with a loose elbow, one of the worst habits we see in dry fly fishing or fishing in general, I don't have quick access to be a good line manager. And being a good line manager, this is a very fast-paced game, especially on the Yakima where we're at. We have to stay in close with our hands so that we can do all this little fishy stuff. Maybe I need to shorten my line. Maybe I need to lengthen my line, but I have to stay in a very compact stance. If you're a right-hander, have your right foot slightly forward so that you can't open up at your hips and your body like this. You have a couple of options on grip. The best fishermen that we see generally have a traditional thumb over grip. My thumb is not wrapped around. That allows for too much play in the back of the rod. There are some modified V grips and other things like that. I don't see a lot of anglers that cast with their index finger up. This is just my observation, not opinion. I'm talking this is my 25th guide season, and I'll just tell you that the line handling and the speed of which people do things with an index finger up grip is generally, if I surveyed 100 anglers, not going to be as good as the line exchanges and the speed and accuracy that we can have out of a thumb over grip. Okay, so we're gonna stay compact. Our right foot's forward. We're very short casting stroke. These are little chips, they're little putts, they're little baby casts, but they have to be delivered with quick line speed. In order to get good line speed on a short cast, we have to have a very short tip-oriented cast. Hugely important. I cannot overstate the idea or the concept of having a short, compact casting stroke enough. It is paramount to being a good dry fly angler. Now next, we're elevated here, right? So I'm actually standing at about water's level, okay? The target that I'm aiming at is down. So rather than having a flat casting plane that I might while I'm wading in the water, my casting plane needs to change. I'm gonna actually use the tip of the rod. My casting plane needs to change to a downward angle. So my back cast is gonna be thrown up into the air, almost like a steeple cast, and my forward cast can then be delivered with velocity right to the water. And I don't care if you slap the water with the fly. If we throw low fastballs and we bring velocity to the water, as you can probably hear and see, it's windy out. We're on a big western stream in a canyon. We're going to deal with wind. If I angle my casting plane down so that I get a good splat on the water, the wind is going to have almost no bearing on my cast or my accuracy. So we have a downhill casting plane like this right here. Now next is going to be a stop and drop. We see the stop and drop is like, if a boat was to come around the corner back here, okay, so let's just pretend there's a drift boat coming around the corner and I'm guiding and I can see a couple 100 yards up the river and I see two anglers in the boat with a real nice high hard stop and then their rods lower like this. I know they've got two ringers in that boat. I do not want to guide behind that boat. I can read the angler's skill and experience from a great distance based on the stopping point of the rod. If I see rods, and I've guided hundreds of casters like this, and their rod finishes low, they might make a really nice, accurate cast with the rod tip being brought low, but the fly is going to have instantaneous drag. It's already tight. It doesn't have the ability to float and stay either on the habitat along the shoreline or in this nice linear seam that we have floating downstream. So we do what's called the stop and drop. We stop right here, okay? That makes a very nice fast delivery. I have a high stopping point with my rod. Then I can drop my rod into the drift and provide a good amount of slack for that fly to keep going. So I stop hard and high like this, and then I lower my rod in, and that fly with no mending, most of the time, if I'm accurate, I'm gonna drop in. We'll talk about mending here for a second, but if we can prevent the need for a mend, which the root of that term is to repair or fix something, I don't want to have to repair or fix my cast. I want to throw casts that are, one, they're accurate, they're in a piece of current where the fly can stay in a good drift and stay ahead. Two, I can stop here and I can just lower my rod right into the drift. The third layer of this, and we'll talk a little bit about this as well, and this is going to be a more advanced technique, is once I develop a very good compact cast with good line speed, I mean that fly is going in at 100 miles an hour or more, then I can start to put some English into the cast. So now I can start to tweak upstream mends into it like so. I could tweak a downstream mend into it. I can even reach around obstacles with my fly, but it's all predicated upon the stopping point of my rod being crisp, firm, and short so that I can build some slack to manipulate in the air. So in review, compact casting stroke, right foot forward. We're on a downhill plane, so my back cast goes up high in the air, driving my forward cast down in a low, fast environment. And I'm gonna stay very compact so that I can then handle my line quickly and I can be a very, very good line manager, and I'm not sloppy with a loose elbow or loose hands around the boat. I'm staying right in here like this, and I can become very accurate and I can become a very consistent angler as well. How you handle the line in your rod hand is very critical because we need to be able to make these exchanges very quickly. I run the line over my middle finger and my ring finger and under my index finger like that right there. And what I found over time is when I'm teaching people to make these line exchanges, they have to be able to throw that line back and forth, and you have to be able to do it with your eyes closed. And that's one thing to practice. Maybe you're teaching somebody to fish in your drift boat. You could practice that before you're throwing at live targets and making sure that you have a good concept of handling line, stripping in line, and then if I need to dump a little out in the water, I can exchange it to my left hand, and I should be able to do this as casual as breathing. Now, here's a tip or a problem, I would say, that I see a lot of times with very experienced anglers. This becomes a very, very fast-paced game. As you'll see when we fish with the head cam on, you don't have to exchange your line every time. Myself, I'm not changing my line distance a lot, especially if I've got a halfway decent rower, and I'm just gonna lock in, and we're just gonna lock up right there. I've got my line here, so when I hook that big rainbow and it comes out away from the shore, I'm able to quickly take in line and make for fast line handling. So I'm gonna cast, and I'm just gonna lock in with my fingers right here. Now I have a very set distance. I know exactly how far that fly is going to go, assuming I'm making consistent casts. And if I need to shorten up a little bit, I can just lean back and do a little shorter stop. If I need to go get 2 more feet, this rod is 9 feet long. So if I just angle my rod forward a tiny bit, I can go from way over there, and then I can shorten it way up on one single cast. And I think staying locked in is one thing we don't see enough of, especially with anglers that maybe have had a lot of wade fishing experience that aren't as comfortable with this real fast-paced game from the bow of the drift boat. Now, the other tip that I want to give right here, right now, is just the use of a false cast as well. And you'll see, I'm just going to explain this real quick, but you're going to see when I have the cam on, I false cast a fair amount. I think that's one thing that people have been on a couple of guided trips, maybe is they were a raw beginner, and the guide's like, oh, don't false cast, don't do that. That's really common for us to want to minimize that when we have 2 flies or a nymph, but when we're probing the banks with a dry fly and really trying to hunt down and extract, especially more mature fish, the false cast is going to build a little bit more accuracy and line speed. And so it's really important to get in the habit of throwing 1 false cast and then dropping it in. Water, especially water in a river, is very inconsistent. It's gonna grip your fly really well sometimes, and you're gonna get a slow extraction into your back cast. Sometimes it's gonna rock it out of there if you have a tight line and everything's on the surface, and it's gonna come back really quick and you'll get a nice cast. But there's gonna be a lot of inconsistency when I come off the water. So I like to pick up, throw 1 false cast, work the slack out, and throw it back in. And I don't wanna make this a whole casting video, but with a false cast, my false cast could be a little slower, and then I'm gonna speed up towards the end of my terminal cast, whatever my last cast is gonna be. So if I throw 2 false casts, I might false cast slower and then pick that momentum up so that the last bit of my final shot is when I give it the juice. And for me, that seems to be the most accurate casting cadence and style, both for me and then the guests that I watch performing the boat. It's like, as far as gear goes, my preferred setup for this type of fishing, Sage R8, 9'5" weight. You can see it's windy. We're throwing pretty good sized flies. I have a Rio bank robber line on there that's really great, as the name implies. We're going to be casting very quick paced into the bank. And then leader wise, a 7.5 foot 3X leader is great for working the banks like we do all summer long here in the Yakima. The shorter leader is going to have a little bit more drag and not hold the lane quite as well, but it gives you, in comparison to a 9-foot leader, an extra 18 inches of fly line out the rod tip, which is really critical for those real quick, short, fast loading casts. And I've got my trusty old Sage click reel here. I like a real basic click pawl reel sometimes. I like the sound they make, and they don't backlash even when you grab them, and I get to take the fight into my own hands and palm it. So anyway, that's my gear. Let's get cracking, see if we can't rustle up a trout or 2. Okay, so here we go. We're gonna start working this log structure right here. I've got good moving current along there. What I'm doing now is I'm teasing my fly away from that log with my rod upstream. That's called walking the dog. And so I just teased my fly off the front of it, and now that I've cleared the obstacle, I can let it run right down that seam on the back end of it. And I'm just, in lieu of any mending, I'm just gonna give it a little skitter and a little twitch just to kind of maintain my good angle. And here I can see I've got a lot of water moving up under those grassy banks. And every single one of these grass tufts where I see black water underneath, I'm gonna do my darndest to get it into the cove upstream of the root ball or the sod or whatever it is. So there's a cove right there. I'm gonna drop it in. Not gonna mend it, the fish has already seen it. I've got enough slack because of my high stop that I can do that. And I'll just give it a little twitch in lieu of a mend, just so that I can disguise my mend with a little bit of natural movement. So I'm in the grass now. Rather than yank it out, I'm gonna put my rod tip in the water, and I'm gonna try my darndest to pull it in. Well, I pulled it in just right. And that little trick I did with lifting the fly up and catching my line in the air is something that's very handy. I snagged some grass, but I'm already back in the water. But that little trick I was showing you about putting your rod tip down and trying to draw that fly right into the water, it won't make a difference every cast or every time you hit the grass, but by the end of a long float, you'll pick up a couple of dandies because you slid that fly very naturally off the blade of grass. Yeah, I had a couple, but you know, 2 of them were just all out refusals. They didn't open their mouth. Big fish, big fish. That's a good one.
Nice.
Yeah, that was exactly what we were going for. Oh, great trout. Right off the backside of those sticks. That water was so fast through there. You just couldn't fish at all. I had to choose very carefully which target to cast at. Oh, that's a good one. Hot fish. Hot fish. Whoa, look at him go. Look at him go. All right, he's still hot. You gotta play these big ones quick. And we're just gonna get one quick look. Okay, ready? Beautiful. Whew. Didn't have to revive that fish. That's exactly the kind of fish we're hoping to get fishing out of the boat on the Yakima. But in that situation, we were in some really, really fast water. And I just think your target acquisition and where you decide to cast is just hugely important. You can't fish at all. So you got to be looking for dark water, sticks, rocks, logs, little current breaks. Don't just cast hopeful, but choose a target. And I have this MO that I'm pretending I'm actually sight casting. So I picture the trout in the water and I present to individual fish, you know, that I think are along the bank. And having these skills before you show up is really important, of course, but also there's no substitute for just exposure. So try to get some trips in, try to get in the boat, try to get out there and stick with dries and just practice on getting good at it and give yourself an opportunity to fail a little bit, because that's the only way that you're gonna get really good at it. So we're gonna keep bumping downstream and hopefully show you a few more tips. So let's do a little piece on fishing in the back of the boat. You're gonna wind up spending a good portion of your time in the back, maybe swapping with your buddy or your fishing partner, and you're gonna wind up back here in what we like to jokingly call the penalty box. Well, it doesn't have to be a penalty box. Let's make this easy. One thing about the back of the boat is people in the back when they're fishing tend to get tangled with their handling line more. So I would police your line length a little bit more in the back and then have a very consistent stance. Keep your weight right in the center, utilize whatever brace the boat is equipped with, but keep your feet close together and your stance close. When we have people walking out here, one, it's dangerous to not be hooked in, but they tend to wrap their line around the chair and God knows what else back here. So very consistent stance, same as the front. Your casting toes slightly forward. And in the back of the boat, don't start casting back upstream. You could cast lateral and go 90 degrees to the current, but more importantly, like, we really want to like let the front angler, who should be doing a good job of working downstream, try to parallel that front angler. So if we're 10 feet apart in the boat, we really want to be fishing about 10 feet apart on the water. And then you could deviate from that slightly and try to poke back into any hidey holes that might only be accessed by fishing out of the back of the boat. The other tip for the back is, like, if you're a really strong caster in the back, what I like to do is I'll watch the angler in the front's fly pick up, and I will try to recognize gaps in the fishing as well. So if I see the front of the front of the boat angler pick up, maybe make a false cast or two, they can't get everything. So I'm gonna swoop in and I'm gonna try to pick up that gap and shoot in right about where that front angler's fly picks up, so that I can pick up all that unmolested water there. Another tip is for like just working as a team, like front angler, back angler, communicating. And as a guide, I'll often coach people on this, but if you recognize the situation for yourself, whether you're a boat renter, do it yourself or whatever, or you're just a good boat companion, what you do is the front angler is going to take all the outer seams and is going to hit the points, the outer stuff, and the big seams at kind of the low-hanging fruit. And then the back of the boat angler is going to shoot anywhere from a foot to 6 or 8 feet further over, and we're going to grab all those seams that are a little bit further over, so the angler in the front of the boat isn't just polluting all of that water, and then you're here in the back stuck casting into the stuff that's still a filthy froth from all the casting that happened in the front. So front of the boat angler takes the longer seams, back of the boat angler punches in just a little bit further, picks up those scraps, picks up those little opportunities, and then some of those opportunities for casting maybe in behind trees, rocks, logs, boulders that can only be accessed by throwing 90 degrees. And once in a while, you got to cheat and throw back upstream, back into some of these pockets just like that. But it's the back of the boat's responsibility to watch the cast timing with the front of the boat angler. The front of the boat sets the angle, they set the tone. The back of the boat just has to kind of watch and yield to the mends of the front of the boat angler too. So I'm gonna be paying attention when they come up for a cast. I might leave my rod down in the water. Once they plant, then I can fire up and I can fire in parallel with them, and we're just a well-oiled machine. A good, well-functioning boat is so much more important than the fly you have on or your casting ability or anything. A smooth boat that's cooperating with the rower and working well is very important. And the other thing to note about positioning from the back is we want those casts in parallel. We can fish very close together without issue or without tangle as long as our casts are in parallel. As soon as I've got the front of the boat guy going a little bit upstream and cheating, the back of the boat guy going down, we've now crossfired. Same thing happens when I've got my back of the boat angler casting up or across and my front of the boat angler coming here. Now we're crossfiring in our back cast. It makes for a mess and a really long day if we do that again and again. So a tangle or a crossfire here and there is okay. We're fly fishing 10 feet apart. Stuff happens, but we don't want to be consistently getting tangled or crossfired when we're throwing these, fishing in this really high speed, high demand kind of environment like we happen to be on the Yakima River here. I'm gonna skip over that submerged log and I'm just gonna feather a cast right under that tree. And it was a nice cast, but more importantly, I was just looking ahead and kind of building out my 2 and 3 cast plan. Now, there's some sticks dangling in the water. My fly's way in here, and my line is probably gonna hit this stick that's dangling in the water, but I just got a huge drift there. Now, my line is snagged in that tree. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my rod tip underwater. Look at that, how that cleared right there. That worked out really well. And I was able to get right under that tree and float through there. And I don't recommend that as a plan, but you could put your rod tip down in the water and that will sink the line and bring the line under those sticks in the event you have a problem. Okay, so we're gonna keep fishing down this shoreline right here, and I'm seeing shadows right there. So I was in the sunlight and drifting into the shade. Very important. So we want that fly in the water before we get into one of these really nice shady zones just like this. And I'm not really moving the fly here. I'm just trying to suck my line and my leader back so that my leader is semi-tight and can stay up on the surface and I don't get in a whirlpool. Very fishy shoreline here, lots of mixed shadows, good current. Now I'm gonna let my fly float in the open seam because I can see the bottom very clearly in there, so that doesn't look very appealing to me. But I see a couple of boulders mixed with these sticks, so I'm gonna skip a bunch of that open water again, going way ahead, and I'm gonna walk the dog. I'm just gonna continually kind of tease my dry fly away from those sticks so that it can stay as close as possible. I'm doing it in a very delicate fashion. I'm not yanking it. I'm not fishing it like a freaking bass popper and yanking it back out of there. Just very delicate. You have to remember everything you do here, that's a bug. It's an insect, it's very small, it doesn't make a lot of commotion, so we want pretty delicate handles when we walk the dog or make those maneuvers.
Was the wind on or off for that last run?
It was on. So maybe the bite was just picking up or we're in better water or something. There's a good grab. Fancy about that fish other than I just got it in a gap. This fella we can just net while we're moving here. We're just gonna self net. Yeah, nice hookup though.
Did you clip that one?
What's that?
I don't know. Can the GoPro see that?
If I would have hit record, no, you would have just heard our reactions. See there, we got him. Just like that. I know that sounded, he came off. I know that sounded like a bunch of voodoo. So I'll try to hit slow motion or something, but there's a way you can lay your tippet over a stick that's laying in the water, and then the fly line or the tippet just kind of lays on the stick and the fly just sits there and kind of hovers in those really tough little hidey holes. And I was explaining earlier that when you lay your tippet across there, sometimes that fly will just hold there and the fish get a way different look and then they eat it and then they pull it away from the stick. Kind of like if you were fishing a downrigger, the fish pulls it off the downrigger connection. That's what happened right there. And that is a like super high level pro tip. You will lose a couple flies learning how to do it, but once you're dialed in, you kind of recognize which ones you can lay your leader over that will still slide off when the fish grabs it. But yeah, that was pretty cool for that to work. I've done that about a half dozen times today, and that's the first time it's actually like paid off. It was a good hookup. Wake them up with the first one. So this is called the pull and shoot. Let's pretend you're fishing and there's a tree in the way. Rather than walk the dog all the way around, you pick up, you fire it right back behind the tree right there. Works great, underutilized strategy. Nice fish. Dude, you just short struck it. Dang it. Nice fish. There we go. There's the fish we're looking for. It came just right out from under that grass tuft right there.
Where do you want me?
Yeah, let's go ahead and we're just gonna net this one on the move here. What a trout, there we go. That is too much fun. Beautiful wild rainbow. Got him. Oh, I missed it, unbelievable. Wow, holy cow. Woo. Dude, that was incredible. Holy cow.
Did you get that?
Fish right here. Okay, just slow us down as best you can. There's a there we go. Good one, right under the tree. Right under the tree. So that one, we had to split the wickets. We had to split the wickets. Go ahead and hand me that net, Noah. We'll just put this guy in the net and do a quick release here. Yeah, that fish required already off. We love that. That's how we like to release them.
That fish required some casting skill.
Yeah, we had to slice like right between two trees. Okay, so tip on that one is like just understanding when you fish these tree line banks that you're not looking to make the most dangerous cast, you're actually looking to make the safest cast. So when we line up our shots on a tree line bank like this, we're really looking for incision points where we can slice that fly in vertically. We have a lack of overhead canopy and structure, and so long as I have a fairly linear casting angle to throw into, and then my rod stroke is overhand or whatever the angle is that I need to slice into that, those are your incision points. That's where you get in there. You try to minimize risky casts and try to take those high, the casts that have the highest rate of getting into the spot with the lowest chance of getting in the overhead structure. So choose your cast wisely.
Redo all that stuff themselves because they put on like Dana 60s, just like off like the F series.
Back out a little. There we go.
Nice one.
Yeah. Oh, lost him. Shoot, can't get him all, but man, he was buried under that grass tuft right there. That fish was tight to the shore. Holy moly. There we go. You know, we're just gonna net him while we're moving.
Okay.
If we anchor, we're gonna tire this fish out. Oh, that's a nice hot one. So we're just gonna net him just while we're moving. Big, gorgeous rainbow. You can see he's still active. Let's just keep him in the water as much as we can. We don't want to handle these fish if we can help it. That fish is girthy. Oh my goodness. That's the kind of fish we have here. Look at this guy, just gorgeous, big, well-built rainbow. There he goes. Beautiful. So I don't think it'll be on the video, but right before that I had hooked a smaller fish, and I was just telling Noah, I'm like, I just kind of like didn't set the hook, and he was on. I kind of like just flipped him a little slack and got him off. The fishing had been kind of tough, so I wasn't sure whether I was gonna get another one, but I was like, man, we get in a good zone. About the time you get that little one on, so when you get the bigger fish, and then it wasn't maybe, what, 2 casts?
Yeah.
2 casts later, we end up hooking up that really nice one. So yeah, solid trout.
It's like his family there, right?
Yeah, I think so. Oh, there we go. Right above that rock. Right above that rock. There we go. Not a big trout. He's fighting above his weight class though. Yeah, let me just net him while we're floating. Beautiful. We'll take it. So sometimes, good work. There we go. Nice rainbow. They look tiny on GoPro. It's actually a 22-inch fish. So sometimes we'll just pretend there's a rock here, but you can see, maybe I'll replay the video, but they'll sit right on the front of those boulders. They're not always going to be behind. So much hair and hackle.
Yep.
It just looks, that sunlight comes through it and really lights it up.
That golden stone I don't like just because it doesn't like to ride the right way.
You got to trim the belly hackle.
Yep.
There's a good fish. That's what we're after. That was wonderful. Good. Oh, you gotta be kidding. He broke me off.
That was a nice fish. You had a stick attached.
Oh, I actually had a stick on the line. Yeah, my fly had kind of followed in there and picked up a stick somewhere in the fight. Oh, that kills me. Yeah, that was a fabulous rainbow. All right, put a new fly on and we'll start over. Hey, thanks for coming along on the fishing trip today. We caught a few fish, fished a couple hours. This fishing here on the Yakima River and the drift boats is unbelievably fun, but the skills I'm sharing with you are applicable no matter where you go. But I do want to invite you to a couple things. 1, subscribe to the channel if you're not, of course. And then 2, get out here and get in the boat with one of us and go experience throwing those dry flies in quick water against the bank using all the stuff that you learned here today.
Go.
All right. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Damn it.
Oh well, maybe we'll get more.
Dumbass. Yeah, I'm gonna lose one. There it goes, perfect drift. I don't know. Yeah, I'll try. Let me do the extendo handle. Oh, just got eaten. Just got eaten.
That was kind of cool.
That was kind of cool, yeah. So you might have saw I fouled up. I was looking ahead, broke my fly off. My fly started floating down. I was gonna net it. And of course, it was such a good drift right through the sticks. Fish picked it up and ate my fly with no line in it. Sometimes the fish just spits it right out, and we'll see those when we're guiding. Sometimes the fly will float right back up. We'll actually get the fly back again.